We're going to explore two very simple, straightforward, and powerful, pretty accurate techniques for making a base map. So the first technique we're going to use is called extension with offsets, and the second one is triangulation. Extension with offsets essentially is a technique where we create, we're collecting the data to create a graph that then we can lay onto a piece of paper to scale. The name extension refers to the fact that you're picking an existing plane of reference that you can project and extend out beyond that line, and then use that as one of your axes. If it's your X or your Y axes in your graph, it doesn't really matter. And so in order to do extension with offsets, you kind of need a building. That's not along the line, but if I keep working my way over, right, there's a point where it kisses the other side of that wall. So that's my extension line, and the longer that this line runs, the more it magnifies the error that you've made in establishing your extension line. So this is what establishes our x-axis, right? So the offset then becomes the distance between the extension line and a point that we want to catalog and map. In your notebook, you're going to have 3 columns. One that says name of the point. We're going to call this the northeast fence post. The second column is going to say EXT, meaning extension. And then the third column is going to say offset. Let's say you take this end, okay, and I'm going to take this end here, and you go right to the center of that post with that thing. It becomes my responsibility now to create a right angle between the intersection of these two planes. And what I've learned to do from chair making, when I'm trying to by hand drill a 90-degree angle into something horizontally, is start by establishing a plane that's definitely not 90 degrees. And then bring that over to a point where I can tell, well, that's not 90 either. And by kind of meandering a little bit back and forth, I can get pretty darn close to 90. So that's the real weak point in extension with offsets, is the further you deviate from this extension line, the less reliable your numbers are going to be. So here we go. What I see here is that we're at 98.5 feet extension line. And what are we at there? 8.5. Now, one thing I didn't mention here is that this is a technique you'll often want to use in carpentry and stuff, but burning a foot basically is what we'll call it. Basically, instead of measuring from 0, because even a steel tape measure, the little hook at the end has some play in it. If you want to be really consistent, start at 1 foot. So you said 8.5, yeah, but we're burning a foot, so 7.5. Okay, so that's our offset. So why don't you guys go to that other post at the southeast post. So we'd go then to the northeast corner of the tool shed. We could map out where the window is on both ends. We could map out the door, all these things. And what I didn't mention is that because we could also be measuring things on the other side, if we measure the apple tree over here, now we need to indicate which side of the line we're on. So that's one piece that's missing from our offset column. Because everything was on the west side of the line, it's okay. But the minute we start to do things on both sides of the line, we have to make sure that we're clear. And you might either say minus, tells you that you're on one side or the other, or you just write down east, or the letter E indicates it's on the east side of the line. Beyond kind of zone 1, maybe a little bit of zone 2, this technique really isn't the best, but it's nice and quick, which is a good characteristic. We're going to explore a different technique called triangulation. So triangulation is a very reliable way to start to map out features, because you're establishing 3 points of known distance. And so you have to start with 2 points. And again, a building can work great. So new column in the notebook, we've got the name of the point. I would just call it point A and point B. But you might characterize it and say it's southeast barn and southwest barn corner. So you have to start by measuring the distance between those 2 points. That's fixed. That's not ever going to change. And one nice thing about triangulation is this could easily be 2 trees in the landscape, or a fence post in a tree, or a big prominent rock that you know isn't going to get moved and is easily reliable. Can I give you that? And we'll just get in the habit of burning a foot so it becomes something that we don't even have to think about. So start at 1 foot. Minus, after I subtract a foot, we're at 40 feet. And then you can stay right there at that corner. Ray is going to stay stationary, and we're going to go to each point that we want to put on our map, and we're going to measure the distance between point A and that point. So we're going to call this, again, this is northeast fence, 27 feet. I've burned a foot, 27. I'm just going to go to the far corner of the barn here. We're going to come up with another name for this. We're at 58 feet. You stay there still, and we'll get this apple tree. And I'm going to the center of the tree, 71. So now you switch and move to this corner of the barn. So everybody that was taking down information was writing that in the column, writing down those numbers in the column from that corner. And now we're writing in column B, or southwest barn, and we're at 33.5 feet to the apple tree. Make sure you're writing it on the right point. We're at 30.5 for whatever we called that. And then we're at 41 to this post. So now we're going to head over and put this stuff on paper. So there's this is the north-south axis of the barn. It's that wall. This is the east wall right here. And then 40. So I just laid out 40. And if I really wanted to do this right, I'd have one of those drafting triangles so that I know that I'm getting a right angle. That's a little off. So there's my 72 again. And my 40, I'm pretty close. It's close enough for this. Right, so now I've got the barn, north is up. And that's a good, just general default, that north is up on your map. So if we were laying out the data we got from our extension line, so 98.5 and 121.5, which takes me just slightly off the scale, but close enough. So there's our extension line. And then what was our offsets for each of those, just in the same order?
7.5.
So 7.5. So there's 5, 6, 7.5 right there. And then what was the other one?
6.
6. And then I would even, if it was like the apple tree, I'd measure the diameter of the stem. And I'd even try to measure or even approximate the spread of the crown, so you can put that to scale on your map. That is extension with offsets. Got it? Mm-hmm. Triangulation. What are our points in order from the southeast corner, point A, I think we were calling it? 27 feet. So at this point now, you have to use a compass, because we don't know what we're looking for is the point where these two lines, these two arcs intersect. I've got it open to 27. I set that there, and then I scribe that arc, 27. Okay? So let's go back to northeast post, but from point B, what's the distance? All right, so now point B, 41. So the intersection of the two arcs marks the location of the point. So these are really nice, simple ways to make a pretty darn accurate base map with no data to begin with.